In a sense, today has been a nightmare for Boris Johnson. I mean, a complete nightmare. A day when he's been held to account. A day when he simply couldn't run away. And a day that I'm suggesting has seen his authority begin to slip away. I'm going to debate that in a moment with our political editor, Darren McCaffrey. But please let me know what you think. Do you think the PM's authority is slipping away? GBViews at gbnews.uk. You can tweet at GBNews. And don't forget, you can also send in your barrage the Farage questions, which come at the end of the show, some of which do nearly clean bowl me, I have to tell you. Darren, what a day for the Prime Minister.
You know what? I think of all the days in his premiership, he's going to look back at least and say that this has been one of his most difficult in terms of just having to admit that the last 3 weeks essentially have been a complete and utter disaster, and a disaster that he has helped create. It started at lunchtime with Prime Minister's Question Time.
Yep.
Few things about that. First of all, I think we've got a picture of what happened inside the Commons today, and the most notable thing, hopefully we're going to see, is that how empty the Conservative benches were. I mean, frankly, now, you may look at that and say it's pretty full. Actually, normally during PMQs, MPs cannot get seats. They can't even get onto those benches. They have to sit on the stairs because that chamber is made deliberately small, that it's not got enough room for everyone. And it was much worse. I was in the press gallery. Those back benches were properly empty. Conservative MPs weren't even going to turn up.
His own side didn't turn up
to back the Prime Minister during PMQs. Quite extraordinary. Second thing is, Keir Starmer had a good day today. He properly tore the Prime Minister apart several times. The Prime Minister, kind of frankly, was just not up to bat to play today. He then went from there to a meeting with senior MPs from across the board, the MPs that chair the various committees. And in that, he was again pressed time and time again about the mistake around Owen Paterson. He was forced to essentially say he made that mistake, it was on him. And frankly, it was just on easy watch for the Prime Minister. And Yvette Cooper, obviously the chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee, Labour MP, you got a sense that she was properly getting under the Prime Minister's skin. Let's have a watch.
Yeah. Believe that Owen Paterson broke the rules? Yes or no?
Yes, and at least that seems to me to. Yes, I do. What we were, as I said at the beginning of the PMQs 2 weeks ago, we did not seek to in any way minimise the importance of that. People who break the rules on paid advocacy must.
You are still qualifying it. You're still saying, well, it seems to me. Do you recognise that, given your responsibility to uphold the ministerial code, to uphold the rules, to uphold the standards, it's really important that you should not give any impression that when there is an independent report that found on 14 occasions of paid lobbying, that somehow you think that's okay. Can you clarify? You don't think it's okay, and you don't think that Owen Paterson did was right?
Of course I don't, and that was the first thing I said when I began on this subject 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And frankly, I think.
So that was Boris Johnson answering those questions. It went on for nearly half an hour. I think there are several things just to pick out from that very briefly. First of all, the Prime Minister got as far as he did. He didn't apologise, but he admitted it was his mistake. He also essentially kind of suggested that Mark Spencer and Jacob Rees-Mogg said that there was a kind of cross consensus when it came to changing the parliamentary rules, which clearly there wasn't. So he feels he was led up the garden path by them. But also, more notably, I think it's pretty clear that the Prime Minister probably hadn't read the report into Owen Paterson. And only when he read the report into Owen Paterson, with the furore that followed, that he realised, as he admitted there, that Owen Paterson undoubtedly had broken the rules. And in addition to that, if you're going to be a bit kind to the Prime Minister, and there are Conservative MPs who feel like this, that in the end, the Prime Minister was not looking at the detail, and he should have been, but he was trying to act out as sympathy to Owen Paterson, who's obviously had a very torrid time with the loss of his wife for the last couple of months.
Has Boris Johnson ever looked at detail?
Well, I think this is one of the big criticisms of it is, and I was saying to you earlier on, wasn't I, that one of the big criticisms of Theresa May was that she was all detail and no big political picture, and one of the criticisms of Boris Johnson is he's all broad brushes and not across the detail at all. And as Prime Minister, you have to be able to do both or it catches you out. He then went having been mauled at PMQs, had a really difficult time at the Liaison Committee to meet with the 1922, which is essentially his own backbenchers in Parliament.
It should be home turf.
Sure, well, without a shadow of a doubt, when you've got an 80-seat majority, it should definitely be home turf. And frankly, most MPs coming out of that are still pretty furious. They feel that this is a proper dent on his authority. The Prime Minister apparently said that he was caught driving down a kind of empty road and crashed the car into the ditch. There's been a certain recognition from Downing Street today that they really, royally have completely messed this up. I mean, it was mea culpa all day. He was eating humble pie since this evening. Where are we at now? In the last couple of minutes, we've had 2 votes in Parliament on the big issue about changes. The Labour motion, which wanted to ban second jobs completely, has been defeated. Though lots of Conservative MPs, it looks by the majority, didn't bother to vote at all. That means that Labour proposal is dead. Labour will try and make political capital out of that, of course. The government motion, though, on banning consultancy jobs and lobbying jobs has passed. So that'll be part of an ongoing process going forward. The bigger thing, though, is where does this leave us with Boris Johnson's leadership? Now, we can get carried away, can't we, and say this has been a sea change moment and things won't go back to normal. And sometimes in the moment it's difficult to judge these things. But you, listening to Conservative MPs, me doing the same...
Something's happened.
There has been undoubtedly a significant dent to the Prime Minister's authority inside his own party. Yeah. To try and recover from that or to get back to where he was, that's going to be incredibly difficult. And we may look back in a year's time at these past 3 weeks and say this was a moment that actually was the start of kind of the change in impression amongst MPs towards their own leader.
Very interesting. And Darren McCaffrey, they're echoing in a way what Trevor Kavanagh, strong Conservative Party supporter, said on Talking Pints just the other evening. Harold Wilson once said a week's a long time in politics. Well, in Boris's case, it's taken a fortnight. But I genuinely believe his authority is crumbling inside his own parliamentary party.